Am I live? Yes, they say third time lucky. I lost my Facebook page, and instead of trying, I don't know what happened. I have 4 pages. Now I have 2. Heike Jenkins, and this one is Heike Recreates. Just have to start again. Joan Grant. I'm reading out of Joan Grant, Scarlet Feathers. Joan Grant was a seer. She used to write books about her far memories. She lived from 1907 till 1989, and she was a remarkable woman, married several times. This book is entitled Scarlet Feather, and it is about an old tribe, thousands of years ago, and Raki and Piyanah. The story is written from the view of Piyanah. They were outcasts in an American Indian tribe many thousands of years ago, somewhere in the West. But they are only outcasts because Piyanah's mother, she passed away now, wanted her Piyanah not to be a squaw as all the other squaws had always been. She wanted her Piyanah to be a woman who knew herself and knew skills also men knew. So Raki is her cousin, and they love each other, and they have to spend time in the opposite sex encampment. This one is called the SQUAWS Tepees. After I had shamed Gorgie, the others ceased to mock me openly, but they made no attempt to be friendly. The only time I was close enough to Raki for us to have spoken was when I was in a file of boys returning from practice with a fish spear, and he was with a group of squaws who were ahead of us on the path. They stood aside for us to pass. None of the boys glanced at the women, and Raki pretended to be watching a cloud, as though he had forgotten he must give precedence to boys. The following day completed the first moon of our separation. But I knew that even when he began his warrior training, he would still have to sleep in the squaw's teepee. Dodok said that we were all to set off before dawn, one by one, as we were not following each other, and that before nightfall we must bring back one of the plants, which only grew high on the moraine above the snow line. Raki and I had discovered the best way up there 2 years before, and to my joy I found him waiting for me. We climbed fast until we found a sheltered ledge, where we could talk without fear of interruption. I asked whether he had seen me the previous day. He smiled. When I can wade through a stream and not know that water is wet, when I feel no warmth coming from a fire and the winds make no sound amongst the branches, then I shall be near Piyanah and yet be unaware of her. Then he asked me to tell him everything that had happened, and to hear how I had gained my first bear's claw made him laugh as though he were really happy. Has it made Gorky an enemy or a friend? I'm not sure, but I think he is still an enemy. Half of him hates me for hurting his pride, and the other half would like to have a squaw whom men fear. Or perhaps only a squaw who is the chief's daughter. You can trust Tikini, his heart is all of one color. He gave you a tooth of friendship. We must have 2 necklaces, Raki. Claws for vanquished enemies and teeth for friends we have won. Then I have 2 teeth for my second necklace, but the other thong is still empty. Tell me about them and tell me everything else they do. First, when I first had to walk across the clearing, dressed as a squaw, I thought everyone would stare at me. I had forgotten that women are almost invisible to men because they have for so long been ignored. But I think nearly all the women must have gathered in their largest teepee to wait for me. They were making tunics or moccasins or kneeling at the looms, but their eyes were bright with curiosity, all watching me, all very conscious that my body was different to their own, and wondering how much they dared do against one who might, in the future, choose a squaw amongst them. Nini was sitting wrapped in a blanket by the center post. She took no notice of me until she had a chance to speak without being overheard. Then she said that my presence among the squaws was only another game we had invented to plague her, or else that her warnings had come true and our spirits had woken up in the wrong bodies. Do you remember how she used to say that we should become each other's reflections, so that when I wanted to use my right hand, it would be your left hand which moved? I gave her the squaw's greeting with the wrong hand, and she was so startled that she called me Piyanah. I saw her stare at my arm, and I knew she was trying to see if you had brought your scar with you into my body. Perhaps some of the squaws believe Nini, and I think I am you, or else find it more comfortable to believe I'm a girl. Anyway, after the first few days they lost interest in me and went on with their work or suckled their children as though there were no stranger amongst them, which is much better than when they whispered about me all the time. Who shares your teepee? I'm with the young girls who are still unchosen. The old women and the mothers with small children sleep in the smaller teepees. What do they talk about? Are they terribly dull, Raki? Most of them seem to think of nothing but the next choosing. They weave patterns for blankets or sew beads on their moccasins, or count over the little hoard of treasures which each kept in a box by her sleeping place. What kind of treasures? Necklaces and bracelets, and some have parts of bear's grease or oil to make the hair glossy. Did you hate the first day very much? Yes, he said frankly. I never thought it was possible to feel so helpless. Such small things were difficult, like wondering how I was going to plait my hair without you to help me. I pretended that they were a hostile tribe amongst whom I had gone as a spy, and it was easier when I wore my clothes as disguise. It's going to be very difficult to learn to think as a woman, Piyanah, for most of them don't seem to think at all. I keep on trying to remember two things your father said. A man who is sure of his own judgment need not fear mockery, and men and women are part of the same whole. If they were only at all like you, it would be easy, for I should be proud of being like you, but they seem so stupid. They are stupid, or they would never have allowed men to make life so dreary for everybody. While Raki was talking, we had forgotten that we were supposed to be climbing to the top of the ridge, and that we must not be seen together. Above us, someone must have trodden on a loose boulder, for a shower of stones came down the hillside. We were sheltered by an overhang, so the stones passed harmlessly overhead, and we heard them go rattling down the slope. We climbed up a dry watercourse, and every few moments stopped to listen, in case anyone else had found the same route. The air was so still that voices carried a long way, and though the sky was cloudless, the sun seemed to give only an illusion of warmth, like the reflection of torches in water. Raki, you haven't told me about the friendship teeth yet. One is Yenna, the granddaughter of Nini's sister. I noticed she was much slower at weaving than the others, and I found that the loom she used had been mended with fish glue, but so roughly that the threads kept on catching. So I made her another one, and she was like a child with a new toy. I said I could teach her to use a knife if she would teach me to weave. She was very clumsy at first and cut her fingers, but now she's quite good at it. We had climbed fast and decided it was safe to rest for a while. And the other tooth, I asked. And that one I shall read later, because I want to make sure this is recording okay. So this is the first part of the 10th reading, and it is the Squaw's Teepee. Happy Sunday, everybody. Today is the 26th of February 2023.